The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. It marks 1 year since the murder of George Floyd at the hands of former police officer Derek Chauvin, who is now convicted and awaiting sentencing. Today, so many media outlets are discussing and covering the murder and the subsequent protests that took place around the country. And I do want to echo one thing that has been said over and over again, but then I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about this from a different perspective. The first thing I want to say is that George Floyd did change the world. I want to play this audio from his daughter, Gianna Floyd. And she said this, it's a very short clip, but she said this just days after her father was killed. And I do want to affirm to that little sister that your daddy did change the world.
Right, daddy changed the world.
He did what?
That changed the world.
Daddy changed the world.
It's that clip. I saw that clip last year when she said it the same day, and it still breaks me to hear that young girl have to. It gives me joy, and it simultaneously breaks my heart. It gives me joy because she was able to find a moment of joy in one of her darkest hours. It breaks my heart that she had to endure that. I also want to say, before I go into the broader conversation, that it's not just your daddy who changed the world, Gianna. You're going to change the world. Our children are going to change the world. Every generation gets stronger. We've had setbacks. There were setbacks in the late 60s when the powerful gunned down our revolutionaries, our leaders. But we're back. This country is facing a movement that is decentralized and democratized. And there's no one leader. They gunned down our leaders in the 60s. But now every single one of us, you, me, your family members, your friends, everyone who understands the value of a human life, we are leading this new revolution. And our children often think, what kind of monsters am I creating in my household? How many nights have my children sat and listened to me speak truth to power? And then I hear it coming out of them. I hear them speaking it. I hear them seeing it. They see it for themselves. They see the poverty. They see the despair. And the first thing they ask is, why? And then the second thing they ask is, how do we change it? So, Gianna, you're going to change the world in ways that would make your father as proud of you as you are of your father. I'm hopeful. This year later, things have not changed. Not in a significant fashion. Black men and women are still being killed by police. We still collectively suffer underneath a police state that is so magnificently disguised. And it's disguised because of, if the people understood exactly the nature of what we are suffering under, then absolutely we would rebel. But we've been convinced that the police state is here to protect and serve us, when they are literally here to control us. Little has changed since George Floyd was murdered before our eyes, except for one thing. See, what happened was that they snatched his life away from us in the most barbaric way imaginable. The carelessness and the callousness that Derek Chauvin pressed his body weight onto the body of George Floyd as George pleaded for his life and called for his mother. It showed very clearly, in the most traumatic way imaginable, just how much this police state does not value human life in general, Black lives specifically. And it was because of that display of barbarity that so many people took to the streets. People of all races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, religions, gender identifications. The people stood up because they saw exactly how little Black lives matter to this police state, and they said enough was enough.
No peace. No KKK, no racist USA. No Trump. No KKK, no racist USA.
Not just here in the United States, but all around the world. It was a global protest saying in a unified voice that Black lives matter. And while some people dismiss the protest as symbolic and just nothing but performative, there's something that cannot be denied about that moment. Something that we need to capture from that moment and replicate far beyond what happened a year ago today. It is the humanity. The humanity that people saw in George Floyd that was being stolen away by a barbaric system that has no regard for human life if that life gets in the way of someone's personal greed, someone's personal political agenda, or a police officer's need to exert their dominance over the people. The barbarity of Derek Chauvin and the other three officers was enough to set this country ablaze.
You can't even look at me like a man because you a bum, bro. He's not even resisting arrest right now, bro.
Pass out.
He's not responsive right now, bro. You're
Check his pulse
definitely a
right now.
bum,
Tell me
bro.
what it is. Tell me what his pulse is right now.
Check
Swear
the
to God.
pulse.
The fact that you guys are checking his pulse and doing compressions if he needs that, you guys are on something.
There are so many emotions as I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm having my own. I'm surprised at my own emotions on TV with you, but I've just, as a white woman, aware of my own privilege in this country, I am so angry. And I can't even begin. Forgive me.
I'm raising a son. I have no idea what to tell him. It's hard being Black in this country when your life is not valued.
It's hard being Black in this country when your life is not valued. That was Bakari Sellers. The voice before that was Brooke Baldwin of CNN. And the voices before that were witnesses, people who were there, who saw the inhumanity, who saw the barbarity. As Derek Chauvin took George Floyd's life. And the reaction around the country was to let this system know that enough was enough. That's what I really am thinking about right now. I'm thinking about the fact that something was released in this country through the violence that took George Floyd's life that is uncontainable, that this system cannot control. They cannot put the genie back in the bottle. They messed up and showed us exactly how barbaric they were. And the response of the people was that this cannot happen. Now, does this mean that the system has changed? No, it doesn't mean that. We're still in the middle of the fights. We have not gotten victory. It's not over. It is far from over. But we're looking at each other differently right now. We have been born into systems that told us to be selfish, to be individualistic, to look out for ourselves. But when we saw how this system treated our brother, We said no. We are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. We said that we will respond by seeing the humanity in every individual, especially those who are being oppressed and brutalized by this system. Derek Chauvin's inhumanity and his barbarity woke up our humanity. And I hope, it is my earnest prayer, that we can maintain that gaze towards our common humanity, the value of every life. Human life is too precious. It is too precious to be crushed underneath the boots of this police state. Human life is too precious to be crushed underneath this military industrial complex. This human life, it is too precious to be crushed by the greed of these systems and the greed of the powerful in these systems. Our lives are too valuable. I am so sorry, Gianna Floyd, that it cost you your father's life for all of us to see the value of our lives, to see the value of humanity. I am so sorry that it took a barbaric act by a savage and by a system that is savage in a country that is barbaric on this planet where we have disregarded the value of human life since day one. We think nothing of killing other people, not as a common humanity. We think nothing of dropping bombs indiscriminately for profit. We think nothing about the homeless. We think nothing about the sick and the dying. This system would just as soon exploit a sick and dying person as it would drop bombs in the global south, as it would to enact an embargo that will starve the children of Yemen. We have throughout the history of our species a track record of disregarding the value of human life. But Gianna, I believe your father's life has changed that. While it remains to be seen if we are going to get the political victories that are necessary to change policing in this country, I can tell you one thing is certain. Your father's life woke up the humanity in all that looked and saw how inhumane those police officers were to your father. I'm so sorry it took his life. But I hope that going forward, we can all look at each other and realize that you matter to me, that your life matters to me, your well-being matters to me, your peace and your stability means more to me than my greed. That is the fruit that will come out of the seed that George Floyd's life was, just as Ossie Davis said of Malcolm X while delivering his eulogy.
That what we place in the ground is no more now a man, but a seed, which, after the winter of discontent, will come forth
again to meet us. That's the fruit. And while I can't speak for everyone else, I can speak for me. It is our humanity. It is our greater humanity. It is the value of every single life. It is the value of every single sentient mind on this planet. It is irreplaceable. It is something that once it is gone, it will never be here again. And that, by definition, makes every human life far more valuable than any earthly commodity. Our lives are more valuable than profit. Our lives are more valuable than the pettiness of our politics. Our lives are more valuable than the ambitions of men. Your life is quite literally the most precious thing on the face of this planet. And even though It may not seem this way because you have been born into a system that dehumanizes you, that commodifies you, and treats us like we're disposable. The seed that will bear fruit from George Floyd's death after the winter of our discontent will be that every single one of us will understand just how precious our lives are. And that, Gianna, that's how your father has already changed the world. And that's how you're going to change the world. And that's how all of our children, they're going to change the world. Because we're not only raising them up to be revolutionaries who will stare this system in the face and dare it to treat us anything less than the magnificence of our humanity demands. We are raising up a generation that understands exactly how much our lives matter.